The Galactic Empire was known throughout the galaxy for its power and control. Its ships, massive and intimidating, patrolled the stars, crushing any planet that dared to oppose its rule. And now, Earth had caught their attention. On Earth, everything seemed normal. People went about their daily lives, unaware of the danger that loomed above them. The sky was clear, and the air was calm. But on the other side of the planet, in a secret underground command center, world leaders were on high alert. For years, they had prepared for this very moment, though no one had truly believed it would come. In the cold darkness of space, the Empire's fleet arrived. A fleet so large it blocked out the stars, its ships glowing with dangerous energy. They hovered near Earth's orbit, their engines humming with power, their weapons aimed at the planet below. The Empire's leaders were not interested in negotiations or diplomacy. They had decided Earth's resources were too valuable to leave to a primitive species. The first message arrived just hours after the fleet had settled into place. It wasn't an announcement of war. Not yet. No, this was a warning, a demand. The Empire's message crackled through every radio and television across Earth, its tone cold and commanding. This is the Galactic Empire. Surrender your planet and all its resources to us. Failure to comply will result in your destruction. You have 72 hours to submit. The message echoed in the minds of every human who heard it. Earth, a planet that had always prided itself on being independent, was now facing the greatest threat it had ever known. Leaders from all over the world gathered in secret meetings, desperately trying to understand the scale of the danger they faced. No one knew what the Galactic Empire would do if they refused. But one thing was certain. The message was not a bluff. Earth was now in the hands of something far beyond anything humanity had ever encountered. Meanwhile, as the people of Earth began to panic, there were those who remained calm, those who had been waiting for this day. Deep beneath the surface of the planet, hidden from the public eye, a secret project known only as Protocol Sentinel was activated. It had been years in the making, a last-ditch effort to protect Earth in case of a situation like this. Scientists, engineers, and military leaders had worked tirelessly, using every ounce of human ingenuity to prepare for an invasion. The Empire may have thought they were targeting an unprepared world, but they were wrong. Earth had its own plans. Across the globe, teams of experts quickly began to mobilize. Satellites, once used for peaceful purposes, were now turned into weapons. Every piece of technology that humanity had ever developed was put into motion, all working in perfect unison. From the highest government officials to the everyday citizens, everyone was now involved in the defense of their planet. But not everyone was ready to fight. Many people were scared, not understanding the true danger they were facing. The Empire's message had caused mass panic. Families were locking their doors, hiding in basements, hoping for a miracle. Some believed the Empire would destroy them anyway. Others tried to flee, hoping to escape the coming destruction. Yet, in the midst of the chaos, one voice remained steady: humanity's response. A single spacecraft, small but sleek, was launched from Earth's surface. Inside it were the best minds the planet had to offer, along with a single message. The ship sped toward the massive fleet in space, its mission clear. As it approached the Empire's ships, Earth's message was broadcasted to the entire fleet. Leave now. This is your only warning. The message was calm, firm, and direct. It was a message that Earth had sent in the past, not with threats of violence, but with the strength of their will. This was a warning, not a plea. The humans had no intention of backing down. Back on Earth, leaders watched the small ship as it floated toward the Empire's massive fleet. They knew that the Empire would not take this warning kindly. They would probably laugh at it, dismiss it as the desperate act of a weak planet. But they underestimated humanity. The spacecraft was met with silence at first. Then it happened. The Empire's fleet, seemingly invincible, miscalculated. A massive explosion erupted in the distance, and part of the fleet's outer defenses collapsed. It was a sign that something had gone terribly wrong. The Empire's ships had been struck by an unknown force, something that hadn't been calculated or predicted. Their own weapons malfunctioned. Systems went down. The fleet was left in disarray, confusion spreading like wildfire. For a moment, it seemed that Earth had already struck the first blow, without even firing a shot. And all the Empire could do was watch. Admiral Xoreth, the commander of the Galactic Empire's massive fleet, stood on the bridge of his flagship, gazing out at Earth through the viewports. His dark, angular features were set in a stern expression, his hands clasped behind his back. The alien world below seemed so small, so fragile compared to the power of the Empire. To Xoreth, Earth was just another obstacle, another world to conquer. The people of Earth might have been technologically primitive, but their planet was rich in resources, resources the Empire needed to fuel its endless expansion. For decades, they had watched Earth from the shadows, gathering information, learning their ways. And now, it was time to collect. "We've given them the chance to surrender," Xoreth muttered, his voice low and dangerous. "If they refuse, they will be destroyed." A subordinate stepped forward, handing him a report. "Admiral, we've received their response." Xoreth took the report without looking at it. He already knew what it would say. Another futile attempt at resistance, but when he saw the message on the screen in front of him, he stopped dead. "Leave now. This is your only warning." Xoreth's lips curled into a humorless smile. How amusing! A planet so weak, so small, daring to speak to him in such a manner. His fingers tapped the console, sending the message through the fleet's communication channels. "The humans want to play games," Xoreth said, his voice dripping with contempt. "Let's show them what happens when they ignore the will of the Empire." He gave the order to fire a demonstration blast, just to remind Earth who was in control. A single shot fired from the fleet's main weapons, enough to cause destruction, but not enough to destroy their world entirely. It would be a warning, a signal that Earth had no chance. The blast shot out into the depths of space, a brilliant flash of light against the black void. But then, nothing. The energy failed to hit its target. Instead, the blast veered off course and exploded in a burst of light, far from its intended destination. What? Xoreth stared in disbelief as his officers scrambled to find an explanation. How did that happen? On his screen, the data shifted. It was as if the Empire's weapon systems had suddenly malfunctioned. One by one, the attack systems went offline, and the once mighty fleet seemed to falter. Admiral Xoreth was furious. How could this happen? "This is impossible." His first officer spoke up, his voice trembling. "Admiral, we're receiving strange signals. It's like their systems are interfering with ours." Xoreth's eyes widened. Could this small, insignificant planet have developed technology capable of stopping their weapons? He didn't want to believe it. The Empire's technology was far superior to anything Earth could have imagined. But something was happening, something beyond his understanding. Back on Earth, the leaders of the planet watched the Empire's response with bated breath. The message had been sent, and now humanity waited. They had no idea if the Empire would heed their warning or retaliate. The world held its collective breath. Then, as if in response to their fears, the earth-shaking rumble of explosions echoed through the air. But the explosions didn't come from the ground. They came from space. The Empire's ships were retreating. Their once formidable formation was scattered, their systems failing one by one. It didn't make sense. The humans hadn't even fired a single shot. And yet, it seemed the Empire was suffering some kind of attack, one they couldn't explain. In truth, humanity's countermeasures had worked. Protocol Sentinel had been activated, a last line of defense that Earth's leaders had spent years developing in secret. The technology was designed to shield Earth from threats far beyond their capabilities. It was a combination of advanced electronics, cyber defense, and secret weaponry that had been carefully hidden away until now. While the world had been focused on everyday life, Scientists have been working on this incredible technology. The Empire's weapons have been caught in a web of interference, deliberately created by Earth's hidden technology. The failure of the blast was just the first sign of what was to come. The Empire, for the first time in years, was unsure of what to do. They had underestimated Earth in every possible way. What they saw as a primitive planet had been secretly preparing for this moment for far longer than they could have imagined. Soreth fumed. His pride had been wounded, and he couldn't allow this embarrassment to continue. He turned to his command staff, his voice now cold and cutting. "This is not over. We will launch a full assault on Earth. If their technology can stop us, we will crush them with sheer power." But even as he spoke, Soreth couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something much bigger was at play here. Earth was not as helpless as they had thought, and as his fleet began to regroup, he knew that this encounter would be unlike any battle the Empire had ever fought before. Admiral Soreth was no fool. He had commanded battles across countless worlds, watching as civilizations bent to the will of the Empire. But Earth was different. Nothing about this planet was what he expected. The blast failure, the mysterious signals, it was all too much. Something was hidden here, something the Empire had overlooked. Back on Earth, the leaders of the planet held a tense meeting in a secure underground facility. The message was clear. They had to be ready for the worst. Despite the momentary success, no one knew for certain if the Empire would back down. If anything, their response had made it obvious. The Empire would strike back harder. The room was filled with the world's brightest minds. Military strategists, engineers, scientists, all working together to figure out their next move. At the head of the table was General David Harris, a seasoned commander who had seen conflict before but had never faced anything like this. "We can't afford to waste any time," General Harris said, his voice firm. "We've bought ourselves a few hours, maybe a day at most, before the Empire retaliates. We need to prepare for their next move." The leaders of the various nations nodded in agreement. Earth had no allies in space, no powerful weapons like the Empire's. But they had one thing the Empire never counted on: their own resourcefulness and determination. "We have a secret weapon," a scientist named Dr. Lina Carter said, breaking the tension in the room. "We've developed a series of countermeasures based on Earth's most advanced technology. It's not much compared to their fleet, but it should buy us enough time to strike back." Her words were met with looks of curiosity and concern. Earth had always relied on traditional weapons, planes, tanks, missiles. But this was different. The countermeasures were a new kind of weapon, designed not to destroy but to disrupt the Empire's technology. It was a risky move, one that could either give them a fighting chance or backfire entirely. "We need to deploy these immediately," General Harris said, leaning forward. "We'll use every satellite, every communication network to target their fleet. It's time they understood that Earth won't be an easy target." Meanwhile, on the bridge of Soreth's flagship, the Empire's forces were preparing for their counterattack. They had recovered from the earlier malfunction, but Soreth was still seething with anger. He was not used to being challenged. "We will show them the true power of the Empire," Soreth said, his voice cold. "We'll wipe out their defenses in one swift blow." The plan was simple: overwhelm Earth's defenses with an overwhelming assault. They would send wave after wave of attack ships, each one stronger than the last, until Earth was nothing more than a smoldering rock. It was a plan Soreth had used many times before, and it had always worked. But Earth had prepared for this moment in ways that even the Empire couldn't imagine. As the Empire's fleet began to move into position, Earth's hidden countermeasures were activated. A series of satellites positioned around the planet began transmitting a powerful pulse, aimed directly at the Empire's ships. The effect was immediate. The Empire's communication systems scrambled. Ships lost their ability to coordinate, as if the very essence of their control systems had been cut off. Soreth watched, wide-eyed, as the screen in front of him began to flash with error messages. "What is happening?" he demanded. "Why can't we communicate with the fleet?" His officers scrambled at their consoles, trying to regain control, but nothing worked. The systems were offline, failing one by one, as if they were being attacked by an invisible force. Meanwhile, General Harris and his team were watching the Empire's fleet from Earth's command center. They knew the Empire would retaliate, but they also knew that Earth's plan was working. The pulse from Earth's satellites was disrupting the Empire's technology, causing chaos in their fleet. "It's working," Dr. Carter said with a satisfied smile. "The Empire's systems are being jammed. They can't fight back with their full force." Harris nodded, but his expression was serious. "This is only a temporary victory. We need to keep them off balance long enough to launch our next move. They'll adapt, and when they do, we'll need to be ready." Back in space, Admiral Xoreth was not one to admit defeat easily. His ships were in disarray, but he would not let a small planet like Earth outsmart him. He slammed his fist onto the console. "Activate the backup systems. We're not losing to a planet like this," he ordered, his voice full of rage. The Empire's backup systems began to power up, slowly restoring control to the fleet. Xoreth knew that he had only one option left: to launch a full-scale invasion of Earth. The Empire would not back down, and neither would he. "We will not let this challenge go unanswered," Xoreth muttered, his eyes narrowed. "Prepare for the final assault." Back on Earth, the countdown had begun. Humanity had made its stand, but they knew the real fight was just beginning. The Empire was powerful, but Earth had something that no one, not even Xoreth, could predict: an unyielding spirit. The galaxy had never seen a conflict like this. Earth, a small and seemingly insignificant planet, had become the target of the mighty Galactic Empire. Yet, despite the Empire's advanced technology, Earth's hidden defenses had created chaos in their ranks. But Xoreth, the Empire's furious admiral, had no intention of letting a primitive world outsmart him. In the depths of space, Xoreth's flagship hovered like a massive shadow over Earth. The massive ships of the Empire began to regroup, their systems slowly returning online. The damage done by Earth's countermeasures had caused a delay, but the Empire's engineers were working quickly to restore full control. "We can't let this stand," Xoreth growled to his officers. "This planet has embarrassed us, and I will not let that go unpunished. Prepare the fleet for full-scale invasion. We will take Earth by force." Back on Earth, General Harris and his team were still processing the news. The disruption caused by the Empire's malfunction had given them a brief window of safety, but the reality of the situation was clear. The Empire would strike again, and this time, they would be ready. "Status report," General Harris ordered as he watched the screens in front of him. Dr. Lena Carter, the scientist who had helped develop the countermeasures, looked at the data. "We've managed to disable some of their communication systems, but they're already working on getting them back online. Their backup systems are strong, and they're regaining control faster than we anticipated." Harris clenched his fists. "We don't have much time. We need to make a move before they launch their full assault. Do we have anything else?" Dr. Carter hesitated. "We've developed something, but it's risky. It could help us disrupt their fleet even more, but it could also backfire." Harris didn't hesitate for a second. "Prepare it. We don't have a choice." The plan was simple, yet dangerous. Earth's scientists had created a device capable of sending a focused electromagnetic pulse, far more powerful than anything they had used before. If it worked, it could disable the Empire's fleet once again. But if it failed, Earth would be wide open for attack. Meanwhile, Xoreth's fleet was readying itself for the final strike. The Empire's warships were massive and menacing, their dark hulls reflecting the cold expanse of space. Each ship was a fortress in its own right, capable of devastating entire planets. The Empire had never lost a battle this way, and they weren't about to let it happen now. As the fleet moved into position, Xoreth addressed his officers with cold determination. "Prepare to fire on Earth. Show them what happens when they challenge the Empire." Back on Earth, the clock was ticking. Harris's team had set up the pulse emitter in a hidden underground facility where the Empire couldn't see it. The device was ready. A few final calculations and Earth's final line of defense would be activated. "Ready when you are, General," Dr. Carter said, adjusting the final settings on the device. "This could give us the advantage we need." Harris nodded. "Activated." The pulse was sent. In space, the effect was immediate. The Empire's fleet began to falter once again. Communications were lost, and the ships seemed to lose their ability to maneuver properly. Sorath cursed as the familiar chaos swept over his fleet once more. "What is happening?" he demanded, fury building in his chest. He turned to his officers, who were desperately trying to regain control. "What is causing these problems? We can't let them stop us now." But it was too late. The electromagnetic pulse had hit its mark, scrambling the Empire's systems once again. Their fleet, once so powerful and unstoppable, was now in disarray. Sorath's flagship, the heart of the Empire's invasion force, struggled to stay on course, its navigation systems flickering in and out of existence. "We can't afford to lose this fight," Sorath muttered, pacing the bridge. "Prepare the last resort. If we can't control the fleet, we will destroy them all." But even as he spoke, the tide was already turning. Back on Earth, General Harris watched the screens as the Empire's ships struggled. The pulse emitter had worked, buying Earth more time. "Good," Harris said, a sense of calm settling over him. "We've got them on the ropes. Now we need to hit them where it hurts." Dr. Carter looked at him, her face a mixture of hope and worry. "Do we have the strength to finish this?" "They'll be coming back, stronger than ever." Harris's eyes were steady. "We have one advantage they can't match: our will to fight." And with that, Earth's counterattack began. Sorath's face twisted in rage as his fleet struggled to regroup. Earth's unexpected resistance was a thorn in his side, and it was clear now that this would not be an easy victory. The Empire's power was immense, but Earth was showing a strength the Empire had never anticipated. The first phase of the battle was over, but the war was just beginning. And for Admiral Sorath, there was no turning back. The battle between Earth and the Galactic Empire was reaching a critical point. With Earth's unexpected success in disrupting the Empire's fleet, the situation had become more tense than ever. On both sides, the question remained: could Earth continue to hold its ground? Or would the Empire's overwhelming power crush humanity once and for all? Admiral Sorath, after losing control of his fleet, was furious. His anger had clouded his judgment, and his once flawless strategy now seemed to fall apart at every turn. His flagship, the Leviathan, had been severely damaged, and the enemy's interference was stronger than he expected. The Empire's advanced technology was failing them at every turn. "We can't keep going like this," Sorath muttered, staring at the chaotic display on his screen. "The humans have shown more than we expected, but no matter how many tricks they pull, we will crush them." The Imperial officers around him exchanged nervous glances. They had never seen the Admiral so shaken, and they knew that if they didn't regain control soon, they would lose the battle. Meanwhile, back on Earth, General Harris and his team were fully aware that their temporary advantage wouldn't last forever. The Empire was powerful, and it was only a matter of time before they adapted to the electromagnetic pulses that had disrupted their systems. The next phase of the battle would decide humanity's fate. "We've done well so far," General Harris said, staring at the screens in front of him. "But we need to think bigger now. The Empire is regrouping, and soon they'll be back at full strength." Dr. Carter nodded in agreement. "We've got one final weapon, something we've been working on in secret, but it's risky. If it fails, we lose everything." Harris turned to her, his eyes steady. "We don't have a choice. Prepare it." The weapon was Earth's final hope. It was an experimental device, a massive energy cannon, capable of releasing a focused blast of power strong enough to disable the entire Imperial fleet. But its power was untested, and there was no guarantee it would work. The cannon had to be fired at the exact right moment. If they fired too early, the Empire would simply rebuild. If they waited too long, the Empire would strike first and crush Earth in the blink of an eye. As the final adjustments were made, Harris could feel the weight of the world on his shoulders. He was no longer just fighting for his country, but for the entire planet. "Are we ready?" Harris asked, his voice low and steady. Dr. Carter took a deep breath. "Ready, but I'm warning you, General, this could either save us, or it could be the end." Soreth's fleet was slowly regaining control, and his flagship, the Leviathan, was readying for its next assault. The Empire's warships, though damaged, were formidable. Soreth had ordered all ships to focus their firepower on Earth's defenses. He wasn't going to let a single planet stand in the way of the Empire's dominance. "Prepare for the final attack," Soreth ordered, his voice filled with resolve. "This time, nothing will stop us." The countdown to the Empire's assault had begun. Earth's military forces were ready, but they knew they had only one chance. If the energy cannon worked, it could disable the entire Empire fleet and change the course of the war. If it didn't, Earth would be defenseless. The tension was thick as both sides prepared for the inevitable clash. On Earth, General Harris stood at the command center, his eyes focused. He knew that everything had led to this moment. "Fire," Harris shouted. The massive energy cannon, positioned deep underground, hummed to life. For a brief moment, everything was still. Then, with a deafening roar, a beam of concentrated energy shot out toward space, heading straight for Soreth's fleet. The beam moved faster than light itself, racing through the atmosphere and into the cold void of space. As it approached the Imperial fleet, there was a brief flash, and then chaos. The blast hit the front lines of the Empire's ships, sending shockwaves through the fleet. Entire warships were disabled in an instant, their systems crashing and burning as the pulse of energy tore through their defenses. The once mighty fleet, which had seemed unstoppable, now floated helplessly in space, their weapons useless, their communication systems down. Soreth stood frozen on the bridge of his flagship, watching in disbelief as his fleet was torn apart. His hands gripped the armrests of his command chair so tightly his knuckles turned white. "This can't be happening," Soreth muttered, staring at the destruction unfolding before him. "This isn't possible." The blast had worked. Earth's energy cannon had struck with deadly precision, and the Empire's fleet was crippled. The humans had done it. Against all odds, they had successfully defended their planet. But even as victory seemed within reach, General Harris knew that the war wasn't over. The Empire had far more resources than Earth could ever imagine. Soreth would not give up so easily. The battle for Earth's future was far from decided, but one thing was certain: humanity had proven that they would never give up without a fight. "Prepare for the next phase," Harris said, his voice unwavering. "The Empire may be wounded, but they'll be back. And when they are, we'll be ready." The Galactic Empire had always prided itself on its invincibility, its power, and its control over the galaxy. But after Earth's unexpected success with the energy cannon, Soreth, the Admiral, had been forced to retreat. His fleet was crippled, and the once overwhelming strength of the Empire seemed like a shadow of its former self. Earth had caught them off guard, and for the first time, the Empire found itself on the defensive. Soreth stood in the war room of his flagship, the Leviathan, his face a picture of rage. His fleet had been decimated, and the humans were more resilient than he had ever imagined. But this wasn't over. The Empire had resources beyond anyone's understanding. They still had weapons that could tear Earth apart, and they would not stop until they claimed victory. "Prepare the final assault," Soreth growled, his voice cold. "This planet will fall. No one defies the Empire and lives to tell the tale." Despite the damage to his fleet, Soreth's resolve remained unbroken. His engineers worked tirelessly to bring the fleet's remaining warships back to full strength, and the Imperial forces began their regrouping. The Empire had vast reserves of soldiers, ships, and weapons. It was just a matter of time before they could launch their retaliation. Meanwhile, back on Earth, General Harris was taking no chances. The Empire's retreat had given humanity a brief moment to breathe, but he knew that the Empire would return stronger than ever. Earth's victory, though significant, had not secured peace. It had only bought them time. Harris paced back and forth in the command center, thinking hard. Earth had delivered a devastating blow, but the Empire would not go down easily. He turned to Dr. Carter, who had been monitoring the situation. "We need to keep the pressure on them," Harris said. "We can't let them regroup." Dr. Carter nodded. "We've been working on that. There's another device we've been developing, an advanced EMP weapon. If we can hit the remaining ships in their fleet while they're still vulnerable, it might be enough to finish them off." Harris thought for a moment. "Can we deploy it in time? The Empire won't give us much room before they strike back." "We're ready," Dr. Carter said, "but it's going to be risky. The Empire's fleet is still a threat, and they may have backup forces we haven't detected yet." "I'm willing to take the risk," Harris replied, his voice steady. "Prepare it. We need to take them out now, or Earth won't survive another attack." As the weapon was readied, Soreth was already making his move. The Empire's engineers had managed to repair a good portion of their fleet, and Soreth was eager to avenge the humiliation Earth had caused. He was assembling the largest strike force he could, with the intention of crushing Earth once and for all. "This time, we will show them the full power of the Empire," Soreth muttered to himself. "This will be their last mistake." Soreth's fleet was once again on the move, its massive ships gliding through space toward Earth. The final assault had begun, and the Empire was determined to finish what they had started. But Earth was not going to surrender easily. General Harris stood in the command center, watching the countdown to the launch of the EMP weapon. His heart raced, knowing that this would be the moment of truth. If the weapon worked, it could be the end of the Empire's plans. If it failed, humanity would be left with nothing to stop the oncoming storm. "Firing in 3, 2, 1, Dr. Carter announced, her voice tense. With a sudden surge of energy, the EMP weapon launched into the cold expanse of space, heading directly for Soreth's fleet. The tension in the command center was palpable as everyone held their breath, hoping that this final strike would succeed. In space, the weapon traveled at incredible speed, a streak of light cutting through the darkness. As it neared the Empire's fleet, it sent out a massive electromagnetic pulse, far stronger than anything the Empire had ever experienced. The pulse hit the fleet like a shockwave, sending ripples of disruption through the Empire's ships. One by one, the Imperial warships began to lose power. Their systems flickered, their weapons fell silent, and their communication channels went dead. The Empire's mighty fleet, once a terrifying force, was now a disorganized mess of ships, unable to fight back. Soreth's eyes widened as he watched the destruction unfold on his command screens. "No, this can't be happening," he shouted, his voice shaking with disbelief. The once proud fleet was falling apart. Earth had dealt another devastating blow to the Empire, and it seemed that their reign of terror might finally be coming to an end. Back on Earth, Harris watched the screens with a mixture of relief and caution. They had won another round, but the Empire was far from defeated. Soreth was still out there, and it was only a matter of time before he regrouped and came back for more. "We've got them on the ropes," Harris said, turning to his team. "But don't get comfortable. We know the Empire's tricks, and we're not letting our guard down." Even as the Empire faltered, Soreth was already making plans for his next move. The war was far from over, and the future of Earth still hung in the balance. But one thing was certain: humanity had shown that it would not be easily defeated. Soreth's fleet was in chaos. The powerful EMP weapon had crippled most of his warships, and his Empire's strength was no longer what it used to be. Yet, despite the crippling damage, Soreth's eyes burned with fury. He was a seasoned leader, and he was not about to let a mere setback defeat him. The loss was bitter, but it had only fueled his determination. On the other side, Earth had only just begun to recover from the shock of the Empire's retaliation. General Harris and his team knew that this final victory was not guaranteed. Humanity had put up an incredible fight, but the Empire was still powerful and ruthless. "We can't waste any time," Harris said, standing in front of a map of Earth's defenses. His team was already working on their next plan. "If we give Torath any chance to regroup, we might not get another shot." Dr. Carter nodded. "We've learned a lot from this attack. We have our best shot now, but we need to take down the core of the Empire's forces. If we don't finish them off now, we may never get another opportunity." Harris took a deep breath. He knew what was at stake. The final assault was coming, and Earth's future depended on a single decisive strike. "We're going in full force," Harris said. "We'll hit them where it hurts. We'll make sure they can't come back from this." Meanwhile, Torath was rallying his remaining forces. He had lost many ships, but he still had the resources to launch one more attack. His officers worked tirelessly to repair what was left of the fleet. In his mind, Earth had made a grave mistake by defying the Empire. He would make sure they paid the ultimate price. "Prepare for the final strike," Torath ordered, his voice cold and commanding. "We'll show them that the Empire cannot be defeated." He knew it would be his last chance to reclaim control. He gathered his remaining ships and readied them for battle, knowing that this would be a fight to the death. The moment of reckoning was approaching. Both sides were preparing for what could be the final confrontation. As Earth's forces gathered in the skies above their planet, the last of Torath's fleet moved in from the stars. The two forces were about to meet head-on in a battle that would determine the future of the galaxy. Back on Earth, General Harris stood tall, looking out over the battlefield from his command center. He could feel the weight of the moment on his shoulders. The humans had fought hard, but now it all came down to this final clash. He turned to his officers. "This is it," Harris said, his voice steady. "We've given everything we have. We've held on when they thought we were weak, but now we strike back." The battle began with a deafening roar as both fleets collided in the vastness of space. The sky above Earth was filled with explosions as missiles and laser beams rained down on the opposing forces. The Empire's warships, though damaged, were still formidable, and the human ships fought with incredible bravery and resourcefulness. The EMP weapon had done its part, but the Empire still had a secret weapon, a massive warship, larger and more powerful than any they had seen before. It had been hiding in the depths of space, waiting for the moment to strike. Torath had held it back, knowing that its power would be needed for this final assault. The humans, however, were not unprepared. Their scientists had been working tirelessly to improve their technology, and they had a countermeasure of their own, an energy shield that could withstand the Empire's most powerful weapons. As the battle raged on, Torath's fleet began to lose its edge. One by one, his ships were destroyed, their mighty engines sputtering and failing. The humans, though outnumbered, fought with unparalleled courage and precision, hitting their targets with devastating accuracy. The Empire was faltering, and for the first time, it seemed that Earth might actually win. But Torath, knowing the battle was slipping away, launched his last desperate move. He ordered the massive warship to engage its final weapon, a massive energy beam capable of annihilating Earth's defenses in one fell swoop. "We end this now," Torath yelled, his fists clenched in rage. As the massive beam fired, it cut through space like a lightning bolt. It was aimed directly at Earth's surface, and it looked as if nothing could stop it. But just as the beam reached its target, something unexpected happened. The energy shield around Earth flared to life, absorbing the full force of the beam. For a moment, everything seemed still. Then, in an explosion of light, the shield shattered, but it had done its job. The Empire's final weapon had been neutralized. Torath stood in disbelief. "No," he screamed. "How is this possible?" The humans had done the impossible again. They had found a way to protect themselves, to fight back, and to win. With the last of Soreth's fleet falling apart, Earth's forces launched one final, overwhelming attack. The Empire had been defeated. The battle was over, and humanity had triumphed. As the smoke cleared, General Harris and his team stood victorious. Earth had survived, and the Empire would no longer threaten their world. "We did it," Harris whispered, looking at the stars. "We won." It was a moment of peace, a moment of relief. Earth had not just fought back. They had shown the galaxy that humanity would never be defeated. And with that, the Galactic Empire was no more.